Good evening, everybody. My name is Deadly Raider Army, other known as Overlord Momo, or as some people call me, Momo, Mamanga, the whole thing, right? It's a play on words, obviously, for the Overlord anime and all that, the guild names after that and all that. But anyway, I'm here today to talk about guilds. I'm here to talk about the good, the bad, the unfavoritism, whatever. I'm not going to have any script. I'm not going to have any sort of editing really going on in this video. I more or less just want to talk about guilds as a whole. Obviously, this comes from the heart because I've been running guilds for around 20 years myself. The guild that I'm currently running, the Great Two Monazric, I've ran this guild for about 6 years since the 2019 launch. Well, you could argue it's 7 years now, technically because of 2026, but, we're still too early into that. Anyway, I'm going to talk about the guild perspective, the pug perspective, and the ones in the middle. What I'm going to be doing is, like I said, it's unscripted, so please bear with me as I go through multiple topics. When it comes down to guilds itself and why I am an advocate for guilds myself is because I've run guilds for so long. I've always been a person that avoids joining guilds. I always like to run them. Now, some people will say it's because of a control thing. I personally see it as every time I've seen other GMs, they don't really put enough care into their people, and they end up just being figureheads that don't really do anything. Now, I'm not going to say anybody's names in regards to that because I don't like doing that. However, I have met GMs out there who have been very pessimistic and they don't give a shit about their guild, their narcissist, whatever, and they basically get given the world. I've seen people get Scarab Lord back in Classic, and they don't even log in or do anything for it. I've seen people get, thousands and thousands of gold given to them by their friends who literally, again, they've done nothing to help them. Now, granted, we're not here to talk about the GMs specifically, but the point is I've seen ungrateful GMs out there. I've seen asshole GMs, whatever. But that's one small topic for another date we can talk about, including officers and all that kind of stuff. However, when it comes down to why is it good to be in a guild, let us start off with the positives. You have a consistent group of people, hopefully. You also have a wonderful home to be a part of. And, depending on the guild type that you're looking for, some guilds are more prioritizing on the progression focus. Some of them are more chill and more relaxed. I like to be right in the middle. And what I mean by that is I like to call it semi-HC. I am someone who enjoys to raid consistently and be very effective, and I like to do prog and all that. However, I also like to take a chill pill and, kind of relax. And unfortunately, it's hard to get good in the middle. Now, what I mean by that is it's hard because you have people who are casuals who are interested, right? And then they get involved and then they want to be a part of a guild. But then you have the other side of the coin where you have tryhards who they don't give a shit about the people who are in the middle or the bottom. And when I say bottom, I don't mean bad. I mean casual oriented. And yes, some casuals are bad, but the majority are just people that just want to take a chill pill. Now, what you're probably wondering is, why am I making this comparison? I'm making this comparison because being in the middle is basically where I want to be, and I want the whole community as a whole in WoW to kind of be in the middle. And the reason I say that is because it's more realistic. We are in a time and era where people don't have enough time to do things. They say all the time, oh, I have so many wives, so many kids, all the thing, whatever. And it's like, okay, if you don't have time, but you have time to raid log, and all that kind of stuff, how can you not afford to go farm gold? How can you not afford to farm all that stuff? And again, this is not the purpose of the video. However, the quote that I like to always tell people is, your guild is there to support you. So these people who don't have enough time, they actually would have enough time if they contributed with each other to basically pool resources and to help each other. Now, you're probably going to say, well, wait a minute, how does this have anything to do with being semi-HC and all that? Well, the reality is hardcore players and people that are of the high-end progression scene, they tend to focus on bringing their own consumables, and I'm all for that. I actually am an advocate for that too. I personally think people should bring somewhat of consumables to help them out in raids, just like world buffs used to be a big thing in Classic. When it comes down to current and where I'm at right now, we actually have a system in place that we use to help people in our guild. And what we do is actually at launch of TBC, and before in Classic we had support as well, which I'm not going to go into in this video, but the point is what we did was we told everybody, hey, we have care packages for day one release. We had over, I want to say 15 plus 5-mans that were grouped up for launch day for leveling. We gave out over 3,000 to 4,000 gold in consumables alone just to help out people with leveling. Now, you're probably going to say, well, that's a waste of gold. To me, that is a benefit because people are going to remember that you went out of your way for them, and they're going to hopefully turn around and do the same thing for the guild. We also do progression care packages where we give away tons and tons of materials and gold and everything else and enchants and everything for free to the raiders for progression only. So once a raid becomes non-prog, we then obviously take away those supports just so that people understand that, you know, we're trying to help, but we're not trying to fuel them 24/7. Now, granted, we could do that if we wanted to. We do have a huge stockpile for that. But again, that's not the purpose of this. So when you look at the semi-HC, casual, and the hardcore players, there's one thing that always stands out in the pug scene and the guild scene, is there's a lot of flakes. Now, when I say flakes, I'm not referring to the players that have real-life agenda, things they have to do, because real life always should come first. However, what I like to do is I like to kind of point out that there are a lot of people who they get like DST or they get certain items fairly like everybody else, and then they just don't show up. Or you have people who just, they sign up to a raid, they don't attend, or you have people who say they're interested in raiding and they just leave, whatever. Now, the reason I'm bringing that up as well is because I feel as if it's disenfranchising the WoW community the way that we are now. Because you have people that are very accepting of real life, but you have people that are taking advantage of that who are basically just upfront lying of their interest to the game. Now, granted, I can't prove any of that because some of these people, of course, they have other things they want to do with their lives. Maybe they have another game they're interested in, maybe they have family, they have a job, whatever, and that's totally cool, and I'm not judging that. However, nobody has talked about the guild side of the agenda here. Everybody says pug this, pug that. Everybody says all these different scenes. I myself am somebody who appreciates seeing guilds exist. I like seeing guilds succeed. I don't like to watch guilds fight over people. I don't like seeing people poach each other. And I'm not trying to say that, like, you know, I'm above that drama, because let's be honest here, when we get pissed off, anybody for that matter, we're all living creatures, you know, we all have our grudges. You know, obviously we've all been there. However, I don't poach, I don't do any of that shit, so when I see other guilds struggle, I always try to help out, and I've made it my mission to kind of always reach out and help out other people, whether they're in my guild or not. And I've seen guilds crumble and fall for various reasons. I've seen people who have had guilds that have been like, oh, my buddy's starting a guild, and I'm like, cool, man. I'm like, what are you gonna do? They're like, oh, well, I don't know, man, my buddy's starting a guild. And guess what happens? Their buddy starts the guild, and their guild dies within less than 20 minutes. And when I say 20 minutes, I mean like 2 weeks, because their friend literally cannot stand doing the work that it takes to build a guild. Or they can't recruit, or whatever the reason is. So a lot of these issues that people are having are based off of the fact that they're not willing to put the work in. And you could argue that that's commitment, or you could argue that that's dedication. However, for me specifically, I've never had any issues with that. I love recruiting. I love to fly over different zones and recruit through that way. I love to check out different level ranges. I love to check people based off of class. I don't do random invites. I actually try to recruit through hand, like conversations where like I reach out to people. I send a macro out there and I go, hey, we're recruiting, of course, but then obviously I have a conversation with them. If they ask about raids, I send them our Discord and all that. And, you know, it works out pretty well. And granted, you know, that's just how it is out there. But no one talks about the actual knit and grit of what it takes to, you know, be a guild in this day and age. I've been playing WoW since I was 10 years old. I'm 30 years old now, and I've been playing for about 20 years. Yes, I've been playing since I was 10, and obviously that's kind of a shocker. However, I will say that in my humble experience, I've been around long enough to see so many different viewpoints of this game where I am like, you know, I'm shocked that people don't talk about it. Now, granted, you have the retail people, you got the classic people, you got the TBC people, you got so many varieties, and even hardcore, of course, which my guild, by the way, we defended the hardcore players on Blood Sale. We went on there after a while, and I'll gladly talk about that stuff later in a separate video. I'll talk about me and who I am and, you know, my background with the game and, you know, the guild's history and all that type of stuff. And I won't name names for certain things, but I will say stories and I'll tell you guys about it. And I do have eyewitnesses for that type of stuff, but, you know, the point is I don't want to name certain people because some of those people, they don't deserve the, how do I put this? They don't deserve a spotlight for the type of things that they've done. Anyway, nobody ever talks about the guild side of it, and the whole point of this video is to bring awareness, more or less, to guilds, and bring awareness to the fact that the guilds itself that people complain about, we need to see more positive things that are talked about with guilds. Because I've heard about corrupt LCs, I've heard about corrupt guild officers, I've heard about all these things from tons of people on the internet, from people I've met myself, people who I've recruited from other guilds, you know, down the line. Like, they'll quit a guild and they'll talk in, like, LFG and they'll go, oh, my guild, blah, blah, blah. I've had conversations with these people before. And one of the most common things I hear is, oh, the corrupt this, corrupt that. And I always like to dig and find out what's actually going on. And most of the time, and this is just me, most of the time it's a communication error, someone actually was corrupt, okay, whatever. And we usually kind of try to, you know, help those people as much as we can. But, unfortunately, that taints their description of other people and other guilds. So when you have people like myself who are going out there recruiting and everything, you have a variety of people to comb through. You have so many people who are from different walks of life and from different walks of this game. And fundamentally speaking, I have nothing against those people for having those experiences. That's their situation that they've been through, and I totally get that. However, what really disheartens me is that someone has been so hurt from whatever situation they were in, where they immediately judge every other guild. Now, I've ran guilds for a long time, and I can promise you that I've had some amazing guildies. I have had some people who I cherish beyond belief, and I've had friends of mine that have been my friends for years who have turned their back on me. I've had friends of mine who have been with me for 6 years who are still playing now. I've had friends of mine even from way back come back out of the blue and be like, hey man, I missed you, bro, what's up? And that type of experience reminds me of when I started to play the game 20 years ago. So for me, this is just all about trying to make sure people understand that guilds are a good thing, but yes, there are bad things about guilds. Again, this is not a scripted video. This is not a, hey, I have an agenda for this. This is a, hey, I'm speaking from the heart. I want people to see where I'm coming from. And at the same time, I want to address this in multiple different videos. While at the same time, I want to go into each individual topic. I won't be focused on guild content specifically, but there will be guild content, gold making content, everything. I've been streaming for about 14 years on Twitch casually as a small streamer. I used to do it pretty hard way back, but motivation was kind of lowered way back, which, again, I don't want to talk about right now, but that was mainly because of, you know, my mom passing 4 years ago. But the moral of the story here that I'm trying to get at is I want to make sure people understand that there are good people left in this game, even if they don't believe it themselves. And I want people to realize that I will never stop this game. I will never stop playing WoW. I will never stop running guilds. I will literally end up being a 100-year-old man if I hopefully live that long. I would love to live that long. And I will still run guilds. I will always keep this going. And I'm not perfect. I won't pretend to be perfect. I won't say, like, I'm a top-end parsing person like a lot of these people will say they are. I've mained a paladin for 20 fucking years. So for me, I'm one of those people that, like I said, likes to stay wholesome and stay realistic and not just bullshit people. So whenever I hear people say that, like, they're a parser, Andy, and all that type of shit, I'm like, really? Like, is that all you care about? You don't care about the rest of your team? Because guess what? You can't solo that raid. You could solo maybe your DPS meter, sure, whatever, but in the end of the day, it's a team effort. So, anyway, without going too much into it, that's all I have for the moment. And I do have a lot more in-depth topics to, of course, talk about during my upcoming videos that I'm going to post. I do not have a schedule for the videos at the moment. However, again, this is just a brief introduction, kind of a example of what I would like to talk about going forward. So I'll see if I can do a little bit of editing here and there just to make it a little bit more polished, because I kind of rambled a little bit here and there, and I apologize for that. But again, no scripting, and that's kind of why I want to, give you guys more realistic content, not just a bunch of bullshit that I, put together in a list. So anyway, with that being said, thank you very much for taking the time to sit down and listen to my words, and I do hope that we can have a wonderful time chatting about this. And if you'd like to obviously comment below and have a conversation about any of this, you're more than welcome to. I will gladly sit down and read your comments, and I will try to respond to as many as possible. Other than that, yeah, that's pretty much it. And yeah, thanks.